Everybody, good afternoon from a nice and warm Portugal. My name is Mariette Abrahams, CEO and founder of Qina, and welcome to our webinar, GLP-1 at the intersection of food, pharma, and technology. This webinar will be hosted together with the Eat Well Global team, and we know at the moment that around 10% of the US population will be on GLP-1 by 2030. Now, this trend is not slowing down in any shape or form. And we have seen over the last few months and weeks a number of webinars that have appeared on kind of how this impacts the food and health industry. And what companies can do to innovate within the space, considering this wave. What we wanted to do was take a slightly different angle and combine our expertise in nutrition and health and food and see how we can put our angle and our slant and our perspective on this growing industry and what companies can do to innovate. So with that, the webinar will run for about an hour, but it will be hosted by Sue Cloran, who will be the moderator for this webinar session, and she will tell us all about how the next hour will run. So, Sue, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mariette, and hi, everybody. It's great to be here. But before we jump in and do some introductions, we thought we would just cover off some housekeeping items, and that's on the next slide here. But just to let you know, the session is being recorded, and the recording link will be shared via email afterwards. We do have some Q&A towards the end of the session. So please, if you do have questions, please submit them via the chat. And equally, if you have any technical questions, feel free to submit them via the chat as well. But thanks again, Mariette, for the warm welcome. And Geoffrey and I are delighted to be here with you today to share our GLP-1 insights. And Eat Well Global, for those who don't know, has been at the forefront of gathering insights from both consumers and registered healthcare practitioners, specifically registered dietitians. So Geoffrey is going to walk us through some of the insights that we have collected. Super interesting. And with that, I would like to hand over to Geoffrey for his presentation.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Mariette. Great to be here with everyone talking about that super interesting and exciting topic of GLP-1s. Let's dive right in and trying to align anyone on actually what is GLP-1. So to put that simply, these medications were created to help improve blood sugar control for people living with type 2 diabetes. But it has been found that it could help in weight loss by curbing hunger and slowing digestion. So in the next slide, with a nice visual map that remember of like me at school with the human body, essentially the way it works is GLP-1 receptor agonists directly impact the central nervous system, the pancreas, and the stomach. So in consumer term, the GLP-1 users will talk about the sensation of like feeling full. So that's a link to the stomach, and also removing the food noise that they tend to have, thinking about food all the time. That GLP-1 medication will help from a nervous standpoint. So that's what the medication is. And in the next slide, we've seen a lot of studies that's showing evidence of significant weight loss. The first one is the ones funded by Novo Nordisk, which is the manufacturer of the most popular GLP-1 brands, such as Ozempic or Wegovy. And it revealed that patients using the medication experienced a significant weight reduction of up to 20% within the first 12 months, compared to 2.5% for those on placebo. And another study where GLP-1 receptor agonists were found to reduce the risk of heart attack in a trial that involved people aged 45 and above with obesity and heart disease. So a lot of great potential from a health standpoint, a lot of studies proving the fact that it's something really happening with this medication. And that's why on the next slide, Mariette, that's why we see a lot of momentum happening in the US. So the data that I'm going to share in a couple of minutes is using like US research. And the reason for that is that the biggest disruption happened in the US. 1 in 8 American adults have been estimated to have used a GLP-1 agonist already. And the interest is particularly prevalent there because 42% of Americans, adults, live with obesity, and about the same percentage of Americans who wants to lose weight. So we are at a moment in time where consumers are seeking to lose weight, feeling empowered to take charge of their health, having a new tool at their disposal, so proactively engaging in discussion with the healthcare professionals about the medication. And we are, in the Europe mindset here, and we can see that, other countries are beginning to follow suit. Now, in terms of usage, in terms of volume data, it was quite hard to find, robust data because in Europe, the usage is still at its infancy. But there's been a lot of forecasting done by, robust organizations, and you can see that 40 million people forecasted to be on GLP-1s by 2029 globally. And then from CAGR, so like the compound annual growth rate, in Europe, we expect it to grow at 15% in 5 years. And that's almost the same rate across, the big five in Europe. So lots of potential there. And the reason for that, in the next slide, Mariette, is the fact that the medication is working, suppressing appetite, but it's also impacting a wide range of different industries, including the food, beverage, health, and wellness industries. We're going to see some of the insight that I'm going to share, showing that GLP-1s affect the diets, affect shopping habits, affect lifestyle changes. So anecdotally, we've seen in the news, we've seen during our desk research that a majority of GLP-1 users are cutting back on, eating at fast foods, going to pizza restaurants, they're cutting back on alcohol, they're shopping more online compared to the average user. They're twice as likely to use an online meat kit provider for convenience because it's targeted to their diet, and we're going to talk about the diet a bit more. They exercise more often, and and that's a stat that I really like. There are some stores in New York that saw some sales of shirts in XS and S increase, while the sales of shirts in XL and large decrease last year. So really seeing a momentum across the industries, and it's not gonna, it's here to stay. And the reason for that, in the next slide, the reason why we think it's not just a fad is the fact that accessibility is going to rise, and so usage with this. And there are going to be some new forms of therapies. We already seeing the development of generic injections, and there's going to be expiration of patents. So we know that Novo is fighting that battle hard to delay this, but we're going to see more brands coming to the market in the US, in Canada here, but then in Europe as well. So it's not going anywhere. So knowing all of this, knowing that it's not going anywhere, knowing that it's effective, knowing that it's impacting a wide range of industries, we wanted to ask the question: how can the food and drink industry adapt and innovate in response? And to do so, we decided at Eatwell Global to kind of go ahead and trying to, help the industry with actual, new research on the topic. So in the next slide, Mariette, last year, what we did is that we actually surveyed more than 700 GLP-1 users and more than 400 registered dietitians across the US to address a knowledge gap in the industry. And that knowledge gap is simply the fact that right now, there's no firm nutritional guidelines to determine unique nutrition needs of adults on GLP-1 medication. There's a lack of evidence at this stage. There are, of course, general practices in terms of, hydration, smaller portions of food, protein throughout the day, fiber. That's generally accepted, but there's nothing quite, specific to those to this population. So we wanted to, bring our contribution and get closer to the truth, basically, to help the industry. So what we've done is that we gather robust samples, as you can see, on a diverse range of user profiles and talking to the active part of the US dietetics profession. And the combination is great because you can see that we can check whether what consumers are saying is actually, seen and observed by dietitians as well. So that's the intro. Let's find out, kind of our key insights that we're, excited to share today. So the first thing that we wanted to say is that there's satisfaction among the users. There are 3 out of 4 users report high satisfaction with the medication. The impact on their weight loss goal, the impact on their overall health and well-being is high, is positive, and the percentages are high. 2/3 are actually expressing no concerns at all about the medication. And we had a lot of questions around the side effects, and the majority of users actually experience side effects, mostly GI related, nausea, cramps, diarrhea. But these symptoms, generally speaking, tend to be short-lived within the first 48 hours, and they don't impact satisfaction at all. So the way we interpret these results is just showing that, the benefits are significant enough to kind of, consider some potential drawbacks using, the injections and living with the side effects. So it is clearly a positive and transformative experience for most. And the medication right now has a strong, positive perception overall among users, but also among dietitians. And that's on the next slide. When talking to dietitian, you can see that high efficacy that I mentioned means that the profession are actually recommending GLP-1s. These numbers were, we surveyed the dietitians twice last year, and I'm expecting this number to go up and up as more, as the usage goes up. 2/3 of dietitians are satisfied, very satisfied with the impact of the medication on their patients' weight loss goals. 60% are satisfied with the impact of the medication on the overall health and well-being of the patients. And you can see that on the right, half of the professions are likely or very likely to recommend the medication. So it really shows that, despite some of the side effects that dietitians can see, despite some concern that they may have on, the long-term safety or reliance on the product, it is a tool for them to use at their disposal as well to help them, support their patients and make the help with the lifestyle changes that they've been, trying to recommend to their patients. The second insight that we wanted to share is that, as you can see, almost all the dietitians we talked to have observed the change in the patient eating habits, and that's consistent across age and gender groups. And what I mean by that is that the influence of the medications is not just about appetite suppression. It actually contributes to changes in the dietary choices and eating behaviors. And we're going to see in the next slide that actually it's reshaping the diets and it's reshaping the choices that users make at every meal occasion. So in this slide, it's essentially a ranking of the consumption net change across meals, drinks, and snacks. So we've asked that users to, what are you consuming more? Why are you consuming less? And you can see on the left, it's pretty clear that they're opting for more water, fruit and vegetables, more fiber, more nuts and seeds, whole grains, lean animal proteins, protein shakes. So overall, GLP-1 users seek lighter, nutritious, and more functional options at the expense of, as you can see on the right in the gray bar here, at the expense of candies, of cookies, of full calorie soda, of alcohol, anything that can be sugar rich, carb heavy, or sodium rich as well. So it is a pretty clear trend across meals, across drinks, across snacks. And we like to coin that phrase, but it's all about the 4 Ps. It's protein, it's produce, it's portion control, and plenty of water, if you have to remember one thing from this webinar. And the third insight on the next page is the fact that it goes beyond the diet, but into, you know, lifestyle and spending habits. And we've seen that GLP-1 users told us that they are spending more on food, on groceries, and on health-related products, often at the expense of social or leisure activities. So it really shows an investment in wellness. The majority of the users we talked to were at their medication fully insured, which gives them the opportunity to, you know, it didn't impact their budget. So instead of eating out, they want to prefer to, eat at home, cook from scratch, and go to the gym more often. So their habits are completely changing. The way I like to say, it's like a new relationship with food and health, essentially. And in the next slide, we have some stats proving this. We talk about, holistic healthy habits. You can see that 64% said that their portion size are improving. They're monitoring their health more often. They increase their physical activity levels. So it goes beyond the diet. I've talked about, smaller portions, home cooked meals as well. The mindfulness in eating has increased. Emotional stress eating has decreased. And this trend is backed by dietitians because they've also seen that trend. They've seen an improvement in portion sizes. They've seen a reduction in excessive snacking or emotional stress eating. So that's it really paved the way for the health conscious consumers. And what we've seen and what we're going to talk about with Mariette in Qina is the fact that GLP-1 users are ready for support on that journey. They want help because that change with the medication is big enough. So we've seen they are craving convenience as well, because it's not just about that they still have a job, they still have some other priorities, so they can't just go from scratch. They need help, so convenience is key as well. And but convenience in a different way, convenience with higher protein content, with higher fiber, gluten-free, for instance, this type of thing. So just to thinking about reflecting all those insights and thinking about the so what for product development and market innovation, it's clear for us that GLP-1 users are reshaping the industry. They are tagging into the health conscious consumer trend as well, and it's only the start. I hope I've convinced you with this. So the question that we have now is where do we go from here? And we've done our research, and we can see that a lot of manufacturers are actually taking charge. So several food and health companies have already addressed the needs of users, by launching nutrition support platforms targeted to GLP-1 users. Nestle did it, Herbalife did it, plenty of different retailers, especially in the US, but there's a big opportunity in Europe as well, just to guide GLP-1 users on their journey. But then also more concretely with products. And the most famous one is Nestle, because they were kind of the first to go to market with Vital Pursuit. And you can see here, the image that we have here, very indulgent food. It's not so much about, competing with, fruit and vegetables, but it's having that indulgent lens, but high in protein, high in fiber, and gluten-free. So a complete different mix from a nutritional standpoint. But we've seen many different and other manufacturers taking charge. So our recommendation in the next slide is simply to any food and beverage manufacturers that you have a prime opportunity to adapt and innovate your portfolio. Look at the portfolio. Is it relevant to GLP-1 users, considering that it's going to be a growing segment? But again, if you think about protein and fiber, it's it doesn't have to cater only for GLP-1 user. It caters for health conscious consumers. So we can expect users of the medication to seek out quality over quantity, smaller portion sizes. It's a huge opportunity here, and something that if you don't cater for those, smaller portions, I think you're missing out, especially in food service or in quick service restaurants as well. And I mentioned convenience a lot. It's, the protein shakes. Then, GLP-1 users, they're losing weight, but they don't want to lose muscle mass. So they go to the gym, they stop doing cardio. It's all about strength training. They need the protein intake. So protein shakes is great for that. And then another 2 slides. So this one is from our research as well. We've seen that users working with dietitians report higher satisfaction. So yes, the primary care physicians, the GPs, or the medical doctors continue to serve as the main resource for most users in terms of advice. But we've seen that those working with dietitians report higher satisfaction with the results and a higher commitment to a healthier lifestyle. To us, it's great because it really shows that, the dietitian has a role to play from day one to make sure that, and that's something we've said to, the manufacturers of the medication, to make sure that there's no dropout, to make sure that there's satisfaction in the product from day one, because we've heard stories of users starting with the injections, making no change in the diet, and seeing no effects or having a lot of side effect actually. So having to, find support, but later in the process. We've seen so many different use cases like that, showing that actually those who are working with dietitians from day one are very satisfied with the results. So our recommendation, as I mentioned, is to for the industry is to support dietitians and healthcare professionals in the broader sense to increase awareness of products, of services appropriate to patients. And that can be in the form of developing partnership with dietitians, exploring ways to engage with dietitians through events, webinars, content marketing campaigns for professionals, but also for consumers, and also educational content as well on the topic. So I've got one last slide, and then I can pass it on to Mariette. Last year for us, and I think for the industry, was all about trying to figure out the landscape, trying to understand, assess the opportunity, understanding whether there was a fad or a clear disruption. To us, it's a clear disruption. It's here to stay. As all the different signs of a disruption for the market. So I guess we all want to move from insight into action. So, and by action, I mean product development, trying to understand the dream GLP-1 companion product perspectives, from dietitian to kind of guide your offering, and also market innovation. So whether you're a food product developer, a market healthcare professional, or just a policymaker, all those insights and the report that the reports that we published can be a great guide to answer your kind of next question into the action mode, essentially. Thank you, Mariette. All yours.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I have so many questions for you already, but I think we'll discuss them at the end. But that was super interesting, and also, for the audience to know that actually, I haven't seen your presentation, so it's nice for me to see it for the first time and hear all these insights from the work that you've been doing really all throughout last year, right? So it's very interesting and nice to see that it really complements what we see in the industry, but from a slightly different angle. So for our listeners now, so as I said, I'm Mariette. I'm the founder of Qina, and we are the hub for data and insights in personalized nutrition. And so what we do is really look at the personalized nutrition industry, which sits at this intersection, of course, of health, of tech, and nutrition, and society as well. So we have 2 sides of the business. The one is where we have the Qina platform, where we track what's happening in the industry. We also have a text analytics tool to identify hidden patterns and trends in our curated repository of data. And we also have a chat interface to ask questions. And of course, we offer consultancy services on top of that for companies who are looking to innovate or conduct research in the industry. So how does this build into what Geoffrey was talking about? So we look at it simply from the personalized nutrition angle and seeing how this GLP wave is really influencing how people now engage with their health and also engage with their food, for example, through technology. So as I said, at Qina, we track the industry, and what we've seen is, and this is not specifically related to GLP-1, but what we can see is that over the last year, there's been a 3-time increase in the use of generative AI. So more and more tools are coming onto the marketplace that have some kind of a chat function. We also can see that there's kind of a split or growing split in the marketplace. On the one hand, it's very much about prevention and kind of health span and longevity. And the other hand, it's very much about food as medicine and kind of solutions that tailor towards this food as medicine approach used in chronic diseases. And that has definitely received the biggest chunk of the investor funding. We also see a 35% increase in the number of companies offering metabolite tests. So we can see that this shift towards, prevention is making consumers more interested in self-tracking, self-monitoring, getting hold of these devices, these kits to really measure what their, vitamin D levels are like, for example, what their omega-3 levels are like. And so if we just look at the context of the personalized nutrition industry, which mainly sits in the US, so it's around 60% in the US, that tracks very much with the 77% of GLP market that is sitting in the US as well. So we're seeing these, two trends, really trending in the same direction. Also on the Qina platform, as we track what's happening in the scientific literature and in the competitive landscape, we can definitely see, this is our metabolite filter, we can see which metabolites are really trending within the marketplace, and you can see, microbiome metabolites in things like glucose, genetics, gut, DNA. These are things that are trending within the personalized nutrition market, which goes in combination with these kind of increase in adoption that we are seeing in these digital health tools. One other interesting thing that we've noticed is there's been about 96% increase in the number of companies that have image logging apps, that have included image logging as part of their service offering. So if you think about the Gen Zs and the millennials that are already tracking like their diet on a daily basis, now the newer technologies like that computer vision is making it easier to track what you are eating on a day-to-day basis, and it's becoming more enjoyable. Of course, there's always the question of are people becoming more obsessed with what they're eating? But as Geoffrey mentioned, this whole trend of wellness and understanding what's in your food, looking for clean label, that certainly we see this growth of image logging apps. So you can not only take a picture of what you are eating, but you can also take a picture of the products you are consuming and have that logged as part of your food diary. So very interesting trends we are seeing as part of the Qina platform. Now, when we think about personalization in terms of this GLP-1 user, there are a number of ways where we can see that personalization will come to the fore. Now, as Geoffrey mentioned, at the moment, there's very little research in terms of exactly what these users need from a nutritional point of view, but we can already see from the research in different areas that there is definitely something that we need to look out for within personalized nutrition. Number one, in terms of gender, there are already studies that have demonstrated then that men actually lose more lean muscle mass and skeletal mass when they are on GLP-1s in comparison to women. We also see that there are GLP-1 users that are becoming younger, so teens are starting to use more and more GLP-1s. In one study, they found that teens that were under 21 that were on GLP-1, they lost about 16% of their weight after 68 weeks. And that compares, it's slightly less, slightly different to what adults are experiencing, which is around 20 to 40% of weight loss. So there's definitely a difference there in terms of age. And should they have a different approach then? In metabolism, of course, we have seen a lot of research already demonstrating that individuals don't respond to food in the same way, looking at whether they have insulin resistance or how they respond to different foods, their lifestyle, their sleep pattern, their stress. And so even that can influence how people respond. Then also some research that has demonstrated that individuals with the ARRB1 variant actually should be on GLP-1 drugs much earlier in their journey, rather than starting them on diet and lifestyle, then metformin. They should be started much earlier because they have a better response. Then we also have some research in terms of the microbiome. So individuals with a more diverse microbiome respond better to GLP-1s. And if you have a more diverse diet as well, that if you have more production of butyrate, for example, the short-chain fatty acid, that can also then increase your natural GLP-1 response, and therefore also lead to a better response to GLP-1. So, and then some other interesting research shows that emotional eaters don't actually respond as well to GLP-1 as non-emotional eaters, which is where also Geoffrey said in terms of how GLP-1 centrally within the brain, if you are an emotional eater, you respond differently or don't respond as well. Also, if you have the diet behavior, or if you have a strong history of yo-yo dieting, these individuals actually lose more muscle mass in comparison to individuals who have not yo-yo dieted before. So very interesting angles that we can see within the scientific literature on how this may influence how we select patients in the future that will receive GLP-1, or who may be better responders or individuals for GLP-1 use. Now, if we look then at, well, how do you go to market as a company, or you're a marketeer, or you are an R&D and innovation, and thinking of how do you go to market with your new solution or your idea? So these are just a few, but if we look at it in terms of positioning, this is what Geoffrey really covered already. We know that there are individuals who do not want the drugs. Some people want a more natural alternative, and that natural alternative then could be a booster, it could be actual food, it could be a specific ingredient, it could be a branded ingredient. And so it's really important to see what kind of angle are you going to take. Timing is another important issue, because we know that there's a massive drop off after the first 3 months of GLP use as well. And so when you develop your solution, is it for the first 3 months? Is it for the latter half of the year? Is it for when you come off the drugs? And so how would you want to position your product? Symptoms have already been spoken about, as well as goals. And of course, what are the beliefs? So do people believe that a natural approach or natural food consumption is better than something that is more, synthetic? And so positioning is going to be important. And this is simply because around 70% of GLP users experience some kind of side effect. As mentioned, whether that's abdominal pain, whether that's nausea or constipation, or decreased appetite, it does happen. It's very common, and it's then how you position your product to meet that need. This could be in the terms of format, portion size. It could be nutritional composition or nutrient density. It could be branded ingredients, or whether your ingredients are natural or sustainable. The other one is around having a technology play. So as we can see already, GLP-1 users have increased interest and adoption of, healthy behaviors. So they are more interested in health. And so this could include anything from wearables. It could be part of a program. It could include like real-time tracking or remote monitoring as well. And the reason why this is important, because GLP-1 users, from a lot of the research that is out in the marketplace already, shows that GLP-1 users tend to be slightly younger. In one study that they did, they looked at GLP-1 use in younger consumers between 2020 and 2023, and there was a 600% increase in GLP-1 use in these young consumers. So we definitely know that younger consumers are more tech savvy. So we're thinking Gen Z, we're thinking millennials, and so they would be digital first. and therefore we would be looking for some kind of technological support. We also know that GLP-1 users increase their wearable spend in the first year while they are on the drug, which means that they don't just take the drug and then leave it at that. They actually use, smartwatches, whether it's rings, whether it's food diaries. They use some kind of digital companions to actually then track how they are doing over that treatment period time. We also see in the research that AI-generated meal planning tools, together with a dietitian, can actually help to increase the amount of weight loss that these individuals have while they are on GLP-1. So AI does play a role, and it also helps to provide some kind of support, real time, and then having a human in the loop as well. So in this case, you would want to partner with industry players to really tailor the solution based on that specific individual's needs. The other go-to-market, I would say, strategy would be having a channel play, because we are definitely seeing changes in how these GLP users behave and how different industries are responding. So as Geoffrey already mentioned, we see food tech as one big area where these meal kits are starting to be developed specifically for individuals who are on the treatment. We also see changes in terms of retail, so how the retail stores are laid out, the products that they are offering. We are also seeing gyms, individual clinics, as well as pharmacies becoming holistic places of healthcare that are outside of the traditional spaces. And this is very important, because what we are seeing is that the lines between these industries are becoming increasingly blurred. And so healthcare can be delivered at any of these settings. So you can have a doctor at the gym, you can have a doctor at a preventative clinic, for example, or at the group session. And so the way that healthcare is delivered, where you can access this medication, is now really shifting in real time in the marketplace. And so, as already mentioned, it's very important to really understand what's going on in the marketplace, but really to partner with healthcare professionals to really understand where consumers are accessing it, where are they finding support, where can they access help when they need it, and which kind of digital tools are they using in combination with that. And also which products are being recommended at the same time. And of course, definitely always have research at the back of your mind, knowing that wherever these consumers are accessing these products and support, we still have very little evidence of what works best for what kind of a group or what kind of a patient. And therefore, research is really, really much needed and important. There's also the messaging play. So this could be simply to make it easier for GLP users to find the products that they need to actually just consume. And this is also very important, because consumers trust clear and transparent messaging, and this has come across in a lot of consumer surveys. But there's also the question of individuals who cannot afford these kind of GLP-1 medications on a monthly basis, which is very expensive if you have to pay out of pocket. So there could be also a messaging play in terms of accessibility. And so the solution for this could be around, here's an alternative that might not be as effective, but can be very accessible, that you can use in the long term, that is safe. But also looking at, should there be GLP-1 labels on specific foods, for example, to make it easy for consumers to find these kind of GLP-1 friendly products, or that would fit into their lifestyle while they are on the treatment, as well as how to use nutrition claims such as high fiber, high in protein, helps gut transit time. What kind of claims can be used to help consumers to understand how it would fit into what they are experiencing at that time. Now, this quote I found this week on LinkedIn from Notco, an American company. And they said, at Notco, we're not trying to replace GLP-1 drugs. We're working to complement the shift by developing a GLP-1 precursor. This booster aims to assist those who may experience weight rebound after discontinuing GLP-1 drugs. Remember the timing thing. So it's natural, it's a booster, you use it after you finish your treatment. And additionally, for individuals who cannot access these medications, our solution offers natural alternative alternative, while not comparable in effect, provides meaningful benefits. So this is the kind of messaging that I was talking about that really makes it easy for the consumer to understand, okay, this product will be good for me, it fits my budget, it fits my beliefs, it fits my preferences, but it also fits my treatment stage that I am in. And this is where the positioning comes in, and messaging really plays an important role. Now, here I wanted to provide some examples of the marketplace, really looking at the degrees of personalization that we are seeing in the marketplace already. So at the moment, we have food and ingredients. So this is from Russo, disclaimer that they're a client. If you are online, hello. So they have already developed a solution where they are looking at a supplement that has an impact on your blood sugar levels. We have other ingredients that are looking at banana fiber. I think super gut is Boost came out here. This is also Nestle looking at high protein. So these are shots that are specifically designed for individuals on GLP-1. And then this is Conagra that developed food, ready-made meals. And they've come out at the end of last year with a GLP-1 label. So it's very easy for individuals to find what would suit them while they are on the treatment. Then we have other advances in terms of, or developments in terms of medical food. So Trifecta is part of, I would say, a food as medicine platform that develops meal kits, and they've also now come out with a GLP-1 kind of meal range that you could order. If you are receiving this as part of maybe a telehealth program, it can be part of your prescription, and it can also be reimbursed in some cases as well. Abbott came out with Protality, and they are also a kind of a product that can be prescribed. It's classed as a medical food, and it's also suitable for individuals who are on GLP-1 treatment. Now, if you then look at a slightly more personalized level, then we look at this kind of phygital solution. So phygital is where you have a physical product, but also then have a digital companion as part of that. So Spoon Guru, a UK-based company, has come out with a solution that is really tailored towards individuals on GLP-1. It's used by retail dietitians in the US, and an AI agent. So it uses agentic AI technology, where it takes this database of the food ingredients that they have, the health properties that they have, as well as the product SKUs in the supermarket. And it'll tell you, okay, well, based on how you are feeling at this time, so are you nauseous today? Are you feeling really low in energy today? Then the agent will go and work out a workflow. It will work out recipes for you. It will work out a meal plan for you. And it also recommend products for you that you can then buy or add to your cart and have that delivered to your home as well. So these are kind of the solutions that are coming up that combines, having an app. So this is, if you think of the user, these symptoms can change, very quickly and throughout the weeks or throughout the months. And you always have this agent with you that can change your recommendation based on how you are feeling and the products that it's recommending. But also we have generative AI technology. So where you have a chat function, for example. So Noom has got an app where you can not only chat with your coach, you can also find answers to questions that you may have. It pulls from a database of, scientific literature, for example, or expert articles. But you also have then your doctor who can then prescribe your treatment as part of your employee wellness program. So that uses generative AI. And then Lifetime is a gym, chain of gyms. And what they've done now is also now created a GLP-1 program where you can actually have a doctor present in the gym who can not only prescribe the drugs for you, but can also do, of course, assessments, while you have your nutritionist there and your personal trainer who will then assess, your amount of muscle mass that you are losing and how you are feeling as well. So that is really on the phygital side. If we look at the digital and biological side, this is at the higher end of personalization. So here we are combining maybe clinical expertise, we're using biomarkers, and we are also using some kind of a digital tool. So in the case of Digby Health, which is a US-based company. What they've developed is a platform or a program where you do a microbiome test, you do a DNA test, and you wear a CGM, and then that will analyze the data points, and it will then fit you into these 3 buckets in terms of what is the best approach for you based on all the data that they've done and based on all the research that they've done. And so the first group would be actually, well, you would just do better on, you know, diet and lifestyle. The second one would be actually you should have dietary changes and metformin. And the third group would be you should definitely start on GLP-1, go and get a prescription, and here's support and personalized coaching for you as well. So what they have done is actually created a digital twin of the individual to then map their biological data, their personal data, their lifestyle data, together with this database, created this digital twin to then, for them to then be able to say, okay, well, this is where I am right now, but if I adopt these kind of behaviors, this is how my body will change, or this is how I might look like, or how my body might shift towards the end of the 12 months of treatment. So you literally have that the digital twin, as part of your journey, who is there to guide you, but then also you have this human support as well. Weight Watchers have also created not a digital twin, but they've created their GLP-1 program for individuals living with diabetes, and they've also included a CGM as part of that, partnering with Abbott. So each individual gets a Libre sensor. So you can see how there's really something for everybody. Of course, the cost goes up as you want higher personalization, but this market is really, really dynamic. And we can see, of course, that you can be in digital and biological. We see some of these solutions already combining digital, biological, and add in a meal kit. Yeah, and so you can really jump from one category or one level to the other one, depending on what your interests, the preferences, and the budget is for that individual. Of course, what's of most important is that the individual actually gets support, and that is really what it's about. So what does this mean for you as a designer and an innovator? You really need to think about the function. So what does your solution actually do for the GLP-1 users? When do you suggest that they should use it? And think about what kind of support can you create to support that user on their entire journey, whether that's during or coming off it as well. And is that digital? Is it phygital? Is it a service? Is it a product? Is it both? And that's really where the future is heading. So if we think about just what to look forward to, well, I definitely think there will be more personalization. We will have more GLP-1 ready foods or claims on pack. And we're also looking at already some rumors or studies coming out about these drugs becoming more oral, and some in early whisperings of intermittent GLP-1 use. So you go on your GLP-1 for first half of the year, and then you kind of come off it, second half of the year, so that you do have some kind of you cycle this GLP-1, mainly because of cost as well, but maybe because people know what works for them and how much they are likely to respond. Of course, we don't have any data on the long-term health implications of that. And what also I think we should be looking out for in the future is that this consumer group might become younger. We know that only 6% of consumers actually want to stay on the drug for longer term. And therefore, one of the studies that has shown that younger users, the younger you start, the likelihood is the longer they need to use it for. So very, very uncharted territory we are in right now, but definitely something to keep an eye out for. So with that, Sue, I'm done right on time, and I think we are open for questions. I'm going to stop sharing so we can actually see each other.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much, Mariette. And thank you, Geoffrey, for sharing both of your insights with us. And with the last 10 minutes that we have together here, we just thought we could share a couple of questions that we've either received in advance, or if anyone in the room would like to pop questions in the chat, we'd be happy to take those as well. I know, Mariette, you already said you had some questions for Geoffrey, but before we jump into that, I have a question for you both, which is that you've both mentioned there's kind of a need for further research, right? We're in uncharted territory with this. We know that users are microdosing, they're intermittent dosing, they're using this drug off-label in many instances. So I would love both of your views on what research do you think we might need imminently or a bit longer term in the future that can help support companies specifically, as they're thinking about their innovation plans.
Shall I kick off, Geoffrey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the more I look into this, I just think we know so little, and it's sad. It's really sad. And so for me, looking at it from this rapidly evolving AI space is, we really don't know what works best in terms of support. We know that they don't want to stay on the drugs in the longer term, but we don't know. Is it RD with AI? Is it just RD for 3 months and then nothing else? Is it RD, maybe not the first 3 months, maybe after the 3 months? There's so much that we don't know. And I think there needs to be a better system to support the research in this, because my experience is that even with us, nutrition expertise, is that there's high reluctance in investing in the work, and it seems like the support end is the fluffy part that nobody wants to invest in, but actually it's the most important part if you're going to have adherence and health outcomes that are really, really lasting and have a societal impact in the long term. So I think it's a really open field, and I think if we can identify what works for whom and when, that should inform the next step. That would be my response.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, we are going to have to keep the pulse on the consumers, how they feel, and also any healthcare professionals that they are talking to. So we talked about dietitians, of course, but they're medical doctors, they're specialists like endocrinologists. So anyone who are at the forefront have a point of view, especially as the month. The year and years come. So it's the mix of voices that will make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love both of your views as well on how companies can support these healthcare professionals. So what needs to be in place, be they dietitians or, GPs, endocrinologists, any sorts of healthcare professionals, does the company have a role in supporting these healthcare professionals? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of companies actually have developed some kind of resources, or you know what I mean? So I almost think like it should be in reverse. I think that the healthcare professionals should inform the companies, like, this is what we are asking and this is what we need, whether that's videos, whether that's webinars, whether that's events, whether that's connecting, whether it's communities. I don't know but I think there's so much information out there already. It's quite easy to ask a question, but it still seems to not be doing the job. People are still not happy. People are still struggling on their own. And like I said, the adherence is poor. So I think start with the healthcare professionals and see what it is that they think is needed to be developed, rather than coming from, inside the walls and develop pretty resources that people just don't look at.
Yeah. I was going to say exactly the same thing, like, keeping like open communication lines, like in terms of, understand the profession and the needs, the reality, their professional setting as well. Because, we talking about that, big HCP group, there are some in clinical, there are private practice as well. So they have different, preference when it comes to content or format.
Absolutely. And, that's at the heartland of what we do at Eat Well Global, isn't it? As Geoffrey's just shared, insights of what healthcare professionals are feeling and doing as it relates to this space. So, yeah, absolutely. Listening and learning. Potentially a bit of a left field question for both of you, but
go on.
What differences are you both seeing between the environment in the US and the environment in Europe? And Geoffrey already touched on how, we know that this drug is bigger in the US in terms of uptake, in terms of usage, and maybe it's growing in Europe still, it's growing in the US as well. But I've been thinking about how potentially there's more there's more of a black market, I want to say, for the medication in Europe. It's more of a taboo, potentially. And also, if people are taking this drug, potentially they're not talking about it with friends and family. It's a bit more hidden or a bit more discreet for the moment. So those would be my thoughts. But Mariette and Geoffrey, what are you seeing in terms of market differences here?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm just thinking about Portugal here, and there was like an initial wave, and then the supply ran out, and so people couldn't get hold of it. So that's certainly one issue, and I think that's already a barrier then, because if you can't really get hold of it, and it's then going to be very expensive, people will just go like, I'll wait it out for maybe 6 months, or I'll try a little bit on my own until it's a thing. So I think there's a lot more. And this is my view. I can't base this on any data, but I think people know that it's there, but people won't go to the extent, that it's that they would do anything to go and get it and pay any price in comparison, maybe, to the US. So I do think that people probably do get it. My biggest fear is that the people who do get it are not maybe the people who need it the most.
Right.
And that's
exactly.
And that's where I think. So it might be that you want to lose 5 kgs or 6. You don't need it as much for those health outcomes that you definitely need. And that would be my biggest concern and difference in terms of the market here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I thought about it from a reaction in the pharmaceutical market. So there was a shortage last year from Novo Nordisk for the drugs, and we've seen in the US already a reaction of the launch of compounded drugs there, which probably prevented off-label. Where in Europe, as you mentioned too, there's a lot of off-label. So from a market already, the dynamic it's very different, US versus Europe. And then you mentioned the kind of stigma as well. I think it's there's in the US it feels like people want to take charge. It's not like there's less stigma. In Europe, because the drug isn't there yet, it's like if they've seen it on social media, like testimonials or good stories there, but it's not as you mentioned, Mariette, it's not broad. So I think that market differences and the psychological,
exactly, social differences that are taking. It's just going to be super interesting to watch. And switching gear back to company response or product response to this, what might success look like then for a company looking to develop a GLP-1 solution? What needs to be in place? And again, does that differ by region, market, country?
I definitely think so. And I think we'll only learn about that more. I think success would mean that that target group intimately with data. So what they do, what their pain points are, what they reach for, what the alternatives are for that group. And exactly what job your solution has in that target group's journey. And I think if we can get to that level, then companies would know exactly where they need to innovate, where they need to partner, where they need to buy, where they need to delist, but we are not at that stage yet. I don't think we have good enough data yet. And I think companies are still a little bit, because the pharma model was very much like, it's drugs and then it's over. it's blurred now, because the consumers want the drug, but they also want food as a food as medicine approach, while also going to the gym. I mean, it's completely, to the title of the webinar, it's completely blurred now. And I think companies need to think wider. And I think that would be success if you can see the opportunities and collaborate and partner in a very agile and flexible way, in a data-driven way. That will be success going into the future.
And for me, success, and it's a tough one, but it should be the North Star, is like confidence that your portfolio is like future-proofed. You're future-proofing for GLP-1 users. And as I mentioned, they're not that different from just health-conscious consumer as well. So that's where the big opportunity is here, is like looking at it from a target audience, that you're not just catering for those with the drug. You have like the GLP-1 curious as well. We're looking at that trend without the injection, but trying to implement the lifestyle changes that come with the injection. So that level of confidence will be success. And I think it's gone through taking the opportunity to look at your portfolio, trying to reflect on how do you define nutrition, how do you define healthy in your own organization, and then trying to understand whether you've got the right portfolio for your target audience and your definition of healthy. And then you've got all the different levers that you can pull to get there.
Wonderful. Thank you both. We are just out of time. We've just gone on the hour. And, just thank you both so much for great discussion and great input. And Mariette, I think you're going to wrap us up here today.
Yes. So I just want to say thank you very much, Geoffrey and Sue. For any of you can contact us if you have any further questions, or if you want more data. Our email addresses are included on the slide deck, which we will receive at the end of the webinar within the Qina library. And also just to remind you that our webinars are, of course, happening every month. Our next one will be on AI agents in personalized health. So teach you all about what AI agents are, how they've been developed, and what's happening in the industry, looking at AI agents in the tech world. And that, I would say, brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much. And also remember that our webinars are part of the Elevate plan. You will get a link just to see what other services are also included as part of the Elevate plan. But we look forward to seeing you on the next one. And Sue and Geoffrey, I hope we get to do another one.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going to stop recording.